Have you ever thought about what would happen if a president tried to stay in office for a third term? Like,
Yes.
it's one of those things you just kind of assume can't happen, right?
Right. It seems so set in stone, like it's just unthinkable.
Yeah, exactly. But there's been this like buzz lately about this third term thing, and it's got everyone asking, can it actually happen? What's going on with all this talk?
Definitely makes you wonder.
So today we're going to try to untangle this whole thing, and we'll specifically be focusing on some stuff Steve Bannon has been saying.
All right. So we've got this video transcript from the Ring of Fire YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah, Ring of Fire. I've seen that one.
Yeah. So they did this breakdown of an interview between Steve Bannon and Chris Cuomo on News Nation.
Okay, interesting.
And we're going to try to sift through everything and figure out, what are these claims actually about? What does the Constitution say? Is there even a way to get around the two-term limit?
Right, because that's the big question, isn't it?
Absolutely. And we want to make sure you understand the whole picture without getting lost in the legal jargon.
It's exactly cutting through the noise.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's get right into it. This interview with Bannon and Cuomo. So Bannon flat out says he thinks Trump is going to run in 2028 and win,
Wow.
and that he's already endorsed him, which is a whole other thing.
Yeah, hold on a second.
But the big thing is, Trump has already served 2 terms. So how could he possibly run again?
Yeah, Cuomo obviously points that out too. Hey, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Yeah, he basically reminds Bannon that there are these things called term limits.
Right. And the Constitution is pretty clear on this.
Okay, so what does Bannon say to that?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting. His response is we're working on it. I think we'll have a couple of alternatives. Let's say that. We'll see what the definition of term limit is.
Wait, so he's actually suggesting there might be a way around it.
That's how it sounds, right? He goes on to say, we've had greater long shots than Trump 2028, and we've got a lot of stuff we're working on there. We're not prepared to talk about it publicly, but in a couple months, I think we will be.
So he's being super vague, but also kind of dropping these hints.
Totally. And the Ring of Fire commentator jumps right on this, and they're like, okay, wait a minute. The 22nd Amendment is crystal clear.
Right. 2 terms and you're done.
Exactly. And they're basically saying there's no legal wiggle room here.
So how could Bannon even think there's a chance?
Yeah, the commentator says that amending the Constitution is practically impossible, especially for something like this. It would take a huge majority in both the House and the Senate, and then 3/4 of the states would have to agree.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Right. It's just not realistic.
Okay, so no legal way to do it. So what is Bannon talking about?
Well, the commentator throws out this really extreme example, okay, maybe a coup, but even they're no, that's just crazy talk.
Right, that's like a whole other level of messed up.
Totally. So we're left with this question, what is Bannon's game here?
Yeah, what's the strategy?
Well, the commentator has this theory that it's all about riling up the left.
Like intentionally poking the bear.
Exactly. They're saying Bannon and maybe even Trump want to get people on the left all worked up and then be like, oh, look at them. They're so hysterical. They actually think he's going to run again. Don't fall for it.
So it's like a way to control the narrative and make the other side look crazy.
Right. And maybe even distract from other stuff that's going on.
But the commentator isn't so sure Bannon can actually pull this off. They bring up his legal troubles and say he couldn't even keep himself out of prison, so can he really handle something this complicated?
It's a fair point.
And then the commentator brings up another big problem, Trump's approval ratings. They say that Trump's underwater with how he's handled things just 2 months into the current administration.
So basically they're saying even if Bannon did find some loophole, which seems really unlikely, Trump probably wouldn't win anyway.
Right, the people would have the final say.
Exactly. They even say it straight out. Even if you somehow get around the term limits of the Constitution, he ain't going to win again because he couldn't win again today.
Which, makes a lot of sense if you think about it.
Yeah.
So the commentator then says that Democrats should use these statements from Bannon in their ads.
Use his own words against it.
Exactly. They say Republicans are always talking about upholding the Constitution, but then they turn around and do stuff like this.
So the commentator is saying this is a prime example of hypocrisy.
Right, and they even suggest specific things to put in the ads, like clips of Bannon talking about a third term and anything Trump himself has said that hints at it, and any laws Republicans have tried to pass that could help make it happen.
Wow, so they're really saying go all out with this.
Yeah, they want to hit Republicans hard on this, and they say the main message should be that Republicans are upending the rule of law, upending the Constitution, and disrespecting the founding of this country.
So basically they're saying this is a fundamental attack on our democracy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to sum it all up, We've got Steve Bannon saying he's working on a way for Trump to have a third term, even though the Constitution is pretty clear that he can't.
Right. And there are a lot of people who are very skeptical about all of this.
And we've talked about some of the reasons why it's so unlikely, both from a legal perspective and in terms of public opinion.
And we've also looked at what might be motivating these statements and how they could be part of a larger political strategy.
So the big question now is, what does it mean for our country when people start questioning these basic rules of our democracy? What happens when someone tries to reinterpret the Constitution for their own benefit?
It definitely makes you think about where we're headed as a nation and what we're willing to tolerate.
And that's something for all of us to consider. What are the limits? Where do we draw the line? Because once you start bending the rules, who knows where it ends?